Hey everybody, welcome to SOFcast. I'm Mike Lundstrom.
I'm Master Gunnery Sergeant Chance Stanley.
And we're here with another interesting episode for SOFcast. We have a longtime veteran of the 75th Ranger Regiment, First Sergeant Jason Belford. He comes to us with a story of leadership, serving, and then he also talks about a story that's pretty heart-wrenching through the story, but it's also important for us to look at, and that's an attempt to suicide. So please be forewarned, this is not an episode you want to be listening to with kids nearby or in the car on your way to work or whatever it is. It's a pretty serious episode. I found it to be really interesting, Chance, and I actually learned something from it.
Yeah, I did too, Mike. One thing that stuck out to me is we have someone who his call to service, serving in the Rangers, was really his entire identity, and he built his life around that. And he was, quite frankly, at one point on top of the world, and then some things happen, and the train starts to come off the tracks a little bit. In his life, pieces of it that were very important to him start to unravel, and at some point, and we're going to get into this in the episode, he finds himself at rock bottom, at the low point of his life. But I don't want to stop there. What I really wanted to focus on was the transitory period where he starts to rebound from that, and he's able to, through recovery, a story of resilience, overcoming personal adversity, climb his way back up and continue to serve and provide value back to the community even to this day. So incredible story, and I can't wait to get into it. Yeah,
it really is a story of courage and resiliency. And we told you guys at the very beginning of the season in our introduction episode that we weren't going to shy away from the tough topics. Well, this is one of those episodes, and I really hope you find it interesting. And if nothing else, hopefully we can save somebody. So without further ado, First Sergeant Jason Belford.
I appreciate and glad to be here today, and looking forward to our dialogue today, and hoping we can change, save some lives, and create some different approaches for people to overcome different adversities they're going to face in this world today.
Yeah, that's definitely in today's episode. It's pretty amazing. Let's kind of paint a picture for the audience, if you will, and talk about what drew you to military service and volunteering for the 75th Ranger Regiment.
Well, I grew up in a small town, South Shore, Kentucky, one of those one stop sign, one red light type of towns. I didn't have a very luxurious childhood, if you will. So I started off pretty rough as an adult myself, and started out right out of the bat, got dropped out of high school because I was 18. I had a kid at 18. So my life just kind of started spinning in the wrong direction, if you will. Bouncing from job to job, being a welder here and a laborer there. And I always had a sense of service and purpose to serve and help others, but I just never knew where to direct that because I didn't have an education. I had a lower education level. I didn't really learn to read past the fourth grade level until I was 21 years old. Spent most of my life in special ed classes, being coached along, doing everything. So started off with the real struggle bus. I had no self-worth, self-drive. And I got started in martial arts and like that. I had some brothers that were in the service, and I really looked up and admired that. The war got kicked off, and it was just on my heart I was like, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to do. And I don't know how I'm going to get there, but whatever that road looks like for me to travel is what I'm going to do. And I went to study classes every night for about a year. At the same time, I was dealing with one of my oldest brother dying of leukemia. And right before he died, a week and a half or so before he died, I was set to take pretty much my last chance at the GED test. I took it 3 times. And he told me, don't let anybody stop you. You can do anything you put your mind to, and I'll always be there and believe in you. And that was like the driving factor that drove me to the top of everything I've done for probably the last 20 years in the service. And like I said, I struggled with everything education wise. And I was like, I finally passed the GED test, and the next obstacle was the ASVAB. So for those who've got a GED, you know that it's a lot of like English literature, you know, history, like those type of things. But the ASVAB, we know, is all like pretty much mathematical based stuff and reading math problems. And that was just a whole nother level for me to go to. But I worked a full-time job, studied every night, went to study classes on the weekends. My ex-wife helped me study. She's pretty good in math, and took that test twice as well. You'll learn through my story, I like to do things twice just to make sure I get it right.
I think we've all been there at some point.
So, like I said, I always I felt like I had a purpose to serve, and I just kind of had a rough start in the beginning, and I wasn't willing to let that, you know, where I'm from, like people just kind of stay where they're at, and they don't, you know, they work at the local plant, or they, you know, work on the barges, and you know, they do great things in the things they want to do, if they want to be teachers and, you know, doctors or whatever in that area, but they don't ever get out of there really. And people, you know, struggled like I did, really don't really get out of there much. And I just wasn't willing to settle for that. So I wanted to join the service, and I've always been pretty decent at physically fit. And when I got through basic training, I got a option 40 contract out of basic training for physical fitness. But like I was telling you early on, I was dealing with my brother dying of leukemia right before I joined the Army. And he was my best friend, like a dad to me. And I took a wrong turn towards alcohol early on in that chapter of my life, and, you know, a couple of times since. But he died, and I joined the Army, and all that happened at the same time. And as soon as I got my first taste of freedom outside of basic training, I was in airborne school, and I drank alcohol, and, you know, that's not allowed. And I came late into the barracks and was late to formation the next morning, and I got dropped from that. So that's when I got sent to the 10th Mountain. And, you know, I didn't even know what a Ranger was until I got that option 40 contract. I looked into it. I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I like doing hard things. And then I really didn't know much about it until my second deployment with the 10th Mountain, my 15-month deployment in Iraq. I did. So
you said you had two
time, and then the fifth.
You said you had two deployments with 10th Mountain. Yeah, what was the first one?
A 12-month to Afghanistan.
And the second one was to Iraq?
Yeah, a year later, a second one.
It's pretty incredible.
Was to Iraq for 15 months.
Yeah, that's so if I can just, I want to just ask you real quick. So, yeah. You know, we're still early in the story, and already you're starting off. You know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're starting off sort of on the wrong foot, right? You didn't finish high school. You're working a trade job. You don't have the education. You don't have a GED. Certain things have to fall into place before you can accomplish your ultimate goal, which is you want to serve your nation, which is an admirable thing, right? But you, even at that young age, you strike me as somebody who has a little bit of a never say, you know, quit attitude, right? You know, can you just talk to me a little bit about where you think that comes from? Was it something that you sort of tried to model behavior from your older siblings or someone else in your life that you got that from? Or is it just from the day you learned to walk and talk, you were not going to let anything get in your way?
I wish it was that way. No, like I said, early on, I had a really rough childhood early on, and dealt with some very abusive situations, and I had to learn resiliency and self-strength in myself to overcome some of those things early on in my life. And then when I got to where I was around my brother, my oldest brother, more, he just like was the beacon of light of like, he was before he died, he was 6'5", 250 pound just man that wouldn't let life stop him. And until he took his last breath, he fought leukemia, and he didn't let anything stop him there either. I was just admired. He was the only mentor I really had at an early age. And I just admired how he took every challenge head on. And like I said, he gave me the, you can do anything you want to put your mind to it. As he's the first person I ever heard that from, at 19 years old. And after seeing him fight so hard for 2 years of leukemia, like, it just gave me a sense of pride to know that he would want me to continue to do everything I can to scratch and fight for what I could earn myself and deserve to have.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, everyone who's facing any kind of challenge or adversity, for a lot of the folks in our audience, I'll just use the sort of, assessment and selection analogy. The many times when I was going through something really hard, a challenging school, dive school, something like that, everyone's fueled by something, because I wanted to quit many times, and it's either you don't want to let yourself down, maybe you don't want to let your teammates down, maybe you don't want to let your parents down, you don't want to disappoint the folks who love you, and they're all like, oh, you're going to do great. And the whole time there's this self-doubt, like, I don't even know if I belong here, right?
Yeah.
I think, we all can relate to that.
I felt like I spent my entire 16 years in the Ranger Regiment telling myself I don't even think I belong here. I think that's what made me fight hard every day to earn my right to be there, as opposed to like, I made it type of attitude.
Right. So, hey, I appreciate that segue. You were talking about your deployments with 10th Mountain. I didn't mean to derail, but I thought it was important to capture that. Yeah,
no. So after I got, we were in Iraq for 15 months in southern Baghdad. It's pretty good spot to be, to say the least. And Ranger was going to target, banging target every night, and then as 10th Mountain dudes, we were literally going behind them and cleaning up. And I watched the dudes take out on little birds every night, and doing. I was like, man, that could have been me, And when I got back from that deployment, I just set my mind. I was like, there's no way. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how hard I have to fight. I'm going. And I got in touch with Sergeant Major Allball, who was the HRC E7 at the time there. And my chain of command, they really didn't want to let me go because they wanted to promote me to E6 and keep me as a senior sniper. And I was like, no. If I go as an E6, I had went to rope. And I was like, no, I'll non-promote, So they wouldn't sign my transfer. So Sergeant Major was like, just sign it yourself and send it to me and I'll handle the rest.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I took that ride. I'm currently in the process of writing a book right now, and one of the chapters called Surviving the Gauntlet. And it's about, what I'm talking about now, like my story of how I, came right off of a 15-month deployment, had 30 days leave, went to RIP for 4 weeks, had a weekend off, went to pre-Ranger for 3 weeks, had a weekend off, and went straight to Ranger school, just that fire, and straight through Ranger school. But yeah, I just had a desire to be a Ranger after I saw what they did. And I talked to a few of them. I couldn't tell you their names now, obviously, but they were like pretty abrasive, humble people, if you know what I mean. Like, they're very proud. How the Rangers are very proud, but they're proud of what they do. But they had no problem telling me how to get to where they were, and I appreciated that. And I just took that challenge head on. I signed into 3rd Ranger Battalion, my home, for the next 16 years on September 23rd of 2009.
So just to go back just a little bit, you before you were going to your first deployment with 10th Mountain, or maybe it was your second, you had a child, a daughter at that time, right? And
yeah.
She was just an infant before you deployed, and then you came home, and all of a sudden they're taking their steps and talking, right? So, how was that? That's pressure too.
Yeah, I get emotional just talking about that, man. I love every one of my kids. They've literally been my motivation, and saved my life on many occasions. And my daughter was born on the 26th of December, and I left for Iraq 7 days later. And my son my grandson in 2021, and he got like 30 days off, and I was like, what? So it was a different time back then. But anyway, we didn't have we had like crappy internet, and there was no FaceTime and on your own in your own room. You just chatting. So my daughter never saw me, and when I got home to hold her, she didn't want anything to do with me. And she would go crawl under the coffee table and cry, and then she would run and scream like I was some bad man trying to hurt her. And it just it really hit me home. How am I going to earn this person that I love more than my own life's trust and still be gone so much, and that was a big driving factor for me to, put my head down, fill my rucksack full of whatever it needed to be done with, and drive through to be a Ranger, because there was no way I was going to be gone for that long at one time away from my children again.
Yeah, it's an emotional thing to talk about, but I think it's important for the audience too, because when you think of the soft warrior, right? I mean, you've seen the billboards in the movies. I mean, you are that guy, right? You're the big tattooed, bearded guys, with all the cool kit, and the long guns and the short guns and all that good stuff, jumping out of airplanes, and that attracts a lot of people. And that is an aspect of what SOF does, but we're much more than that, right? We're husbands and fathers and sons and daughters, so I just wanted to pull that thread a little bit so, that people can appreciate that, the cool kit and all that, the camaraderie and the cool schools is just one piece of what we do, but it's not necessarily who we are.
Well, there's the aspect of managing cohesion in the family, right? You have 7 kids, I believe.
6.
Six.
Yeah.
Six. Then I'm trying to add one.
Kids.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have three boys and 3 girls. I adopted two kids. So
That's incredible, and still maintain a high ops tempo with the 75th Ranger Regiment.
I love kids.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell us a little bit more about the Ranger Regiment when you were there. Some of the leaders that helped you looked up to. Anybody come to mind?
Yeah, a lot. That list is a mile long, honestly. Like I said, I was signed into my home on September 23rd, and I like telling the story. One of the first people I met, his name was Sergeant Lyons. He said, "There's 3 ways to be a Ranger. You can be the smartest man in the room, and let's be honest, that's never going to be you. You can be the
savage.
That's savage. That is very savage.
You can be the biggest man in the room, and that ain't never going to be you either. Or you can be a true sniper and kill a bunch of people and make a name for yourself." And I was like, man, I think that sounds like one I could figure out. And so I just I put a lot of work into that, and throughout that, I met Caleb Perkins, he was one of my first big mentors, Nick Irvin, good guy. I met Sergeant Major Masters, who is an outstanding friend of mine now, and was a true leader, a true servant leader to me in a lot of hard times, along with Sergeant Major Donaldson, Sergeant Major Johnson. Those 3, and Sergeant Major Cobb now, those 4 people probably across the board were the biggest mentors in the 75th Ranger Regiment. I had a bunch, squad leaders, platoon sergeant mentors, but the ones that really reached down in need, pulled me up out of the water in the sand whenever it got too hard were those guys. And I owe those guys everything. Sergeant Major Donaldson, when he was the RSM Sergeant Major, we get good at putting the mask on, right? And that's what I talked about a lot. It's like I can come to work and look like a Spartan all day and just row as hard until I put my car and drive to go home. But it takes a true leaders and a true mentor to be able to look at somebody and understand that's not the normal person that I'm used to seeing. And those guys are the best at doing that. And Sergeant Major Dawson pulled me in his office, and he's like, "What's going on, Ranger buddy?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Where you at? Like, I can tell you ain't here," and we just talked, and like, it was emotional with the stuff I was dealing with at the time, going through a divorce and, just a lot of, issues in my marriage, and, my home life was, going to shit, but I still wanted to come to work and give everything I had every day, had one of my kids, growing up and moving out of the house, like all those things coming together, like it was like an atomic bomb in my head several times. And he saw that and he pulled me in and was a true mentor to me and developed me and gave me the time I need. And Sergeant Major Clapton, like Sergeant Major Bracino, but some of them weren't Sergeant Majors when I first met them, but that's who they are now. And they were just true leaders, is the reason I was able to grow in the 75th Ranger Regiment, being able to meet those guys and grow under those guys and have that type of leadership. Sergeant Major Norton, that guy, I went to church with him, on Sundays and, pulled triggers with him on the weekdays, like what an amazing individual. And I feel so blessed to have those type of people in my life, and I can pick up the phone and call them right now, and the brotherhood and the friendship developed with those individuals have really, over the past year, when I went through my biggest struggle in life, those guys were there for me more than I could ever ask for. In the 75th Ranger Regiment definitely is my home. But it's not who I am anymore.
It's interesting. You said the biggest struggle in your life. You want to walk us into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I had several things, going on at one time. I was just starting my divorce. Was married for 9 years and a rocky last couple of years, and started my divorce. I knew I wanted to retire and not be a sergeant major, and I knew I was going to have to give up being a first sergeant regiment, which was, the Ranger Regiment's been my identity for so many years now, and it's the brotherhood, the cool guy gear stuff you talk about, and the free falling from 18,000 feet and jumping at nighttime, cool weapons, all that stuff is great. And I'm glad I got the experience. The reason I kept coming back to the 75th Ranger Regiment over and over again were the people, the Rangers. And you can't find, you could hunt the world over 100 times and you can't find somebody, in my opinion, I'm a little bit biased, but
I think it's a fair assessment.
More hard charging, more driven, more driven, more selfless, willing to give their life, willing to give their time to you as a Ranger buddy. And that's why I kept coming back over and over. And as I was coming to the end of my 24 odd months of first sergeant time, going through my divorce there and passing the torch as a first sergeant, leaving regiment and going to be an OCS instructor, that it was, I felt like when I passed my guide on for the last time in the 75th Ranger Regiment, I felt like my identity crashed with it. And that was the day I left the Army, honestly.
It has been a tough time in your life right now at this point, right? Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do with my life, man. I'm like, I'm losing everything that I found purpose in myself in, and I'm losing my wife, losing my career, if you will, you know, my regiment, my home. I just didn't know what to do with myself. And I felt like I was too high ranking to go to the boys, if you will. I didn't want to be a burden to those amazing mentors that I mentioned and, you know, be looked at as lesser of a man because I'm fucking losing myself and drowning myself in, you know, literally women and alcohol, you know. Just a horrible time. Like I didn't know where to go or what to do. And I spent about 4 months struggling there. And I came home from my I came home from a field problem, and I would drink after PT in the morning. And I thought you work too hard to be seen as somebody this weak and a piece of shit, if you will. So I tried to take my own life. So I thought if I'm going to go out, I'll just go out on top. And life didn't have a purpose. I didn't know who I was, where I was going to go, what I was going to do, who I was going to do it with. Lonely felt like forever for me. And so I went home and sorry guys.
No, that's all right. Take a breath.
You're good, brother.
I went home and put my gun in my mouth, and it went click.
That's incredible.
I didn't really know how to take that at the time, but I knew it meant something. In the state that I was in, it still meant something. And through some of the counseling I had prior to that, they told me to find a place that you've ever felt safe and at peace. And my life has been destruction and turmoil, and loss and adversity. It was like, where the fuck am I going to find it? And I had I had this snapshot picture in my head of my daughter, my youngest daughter. She's about 9 months old. It's Christmas time. And her mom had fed her, but she still fussed, and I was on leave. So I just got up with her, and I went and sat down in my chair and rocked her with her. And it was like the world stopped for a few minutes. And I found peace. And I thank God for that image every day. So I put down my gun and drove to the only place that I knew, home. Just praying that they would be there. And Lieutenant Colonel Simonet was there when I got there. or wasn't there when I got there, but she came in from being off, and Teresa Ariola was walking to her car, go home, and they just dropped everything to take care of me. I've never been alone since, honestly. They check on me all the time, and they got me into the Laurel Ridge program and saved my life. The regiment gave me my life and purpose, and then it ended up saving it too. And I will always be grateful for that.
Yeah, so it's a powerful story, and I have to think that you're trying to determine, where do I go for help, right? Because I need some help right now, and you think 75th is my home, and that's the only really home that I've ever known. But is there a sort of fear at the same time that if I go and reach out, will they, accept me with open arms? Will they shun me? What's going to happen? But they did what leaders do, right?
Yeah. There was, but I was just, I don't know if I would have, finished the job if they wouldn't have been there, or I don't know if I would have kept looking. But what I do know is I believe in God stronger now than I ever have. My faith is unshakable. And I didn't find this out till later, but Teresa Ariola had a dentist appointment at 2:00. I got there about 3:50. She had a dentist appointment at 2:00. And she never misses any appointments, and she'd tell you that. And her workload was so heavy, and she had so many different meetings and all these different things that she had to call and cancel her appointment at 2. And she was so mad. She was telling me she was so mad the rest of the day, how unprofessional it was to have to cancel an appointment that you made for a month ago, and so on and so forth. But she said that after she talked to me, that was God's purpose for her that day. And you never know why things happen the way they do, and what kind of effect that red light may have on the intersection down the road for you. And I learned that lesson that day.
There's a couple of elements of divine intervention right in your story, and you just scratch your head and you're like, how or why, we might never have the answers, but it's true that you don't always realize the impact that you have on people, right? Positively or negatively, but through your actions, people that you don't even, aren't in your close circle even, that are being impacted through your actions. And I think that's a good point that you're making is you impacted people at the 75th Ranger Regiment, and then when you went back asking for help, they dropped everything to, answer the call. Dental appointments be damned.
Mm-hmm. So I spent 30 days in Laurel Ridge. I felt like embarrassed that I was being sent to an inpatient, mental institution, or that's how I had it played out in my head. But when I got there, there were SF dudes, sergeant majors, SEAL team members, MARSOC guys, And I never seen a bunch of group of guys that had never met each other and become more of a band of brothers than we were able to. They're some of my best friends now. And we have what's called the war room, where you go, after you've been there, about 3 weeks and you're getting ready to leave, like you go in and you share like the unfortunate tragedies of that, that you suffer with through, PTSD and, the traumas that you've dealt with and, you've had to see, in combat, killing people or seeing stuff, mangled or whatever their story was. And then the bond that you build through those adversities and those traumas that people dealt with, and that the feeling that you get of like, I'm not alone. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. One of my big mentors, his name's Dave Elder, probably the biggest civilian mentor I have in my life. He said something to me after I got back from Laurel Ridge. He watched my service dog Havoc while I was gone, and he said something to me. He said, if you want to help people, you go to them, you help them, and you enjoy helping them, and you get pleasure and purpose out of helping somebody. He's like, I've seen you do it, and you get fulfillment out of that, not a financial fulfillment, but a personal fulfillment and a sense of purpose. And because you were able to help somebody, by not reaching out to other people, you're robbing them of being able to get that same purpose and that same sense of being able to help somebody. So giving people a chance to help is what they want to do, because that's human nature to want to take care of each other. And that just stuck with me, and since then I've been able to, like, if I'm having a bad day, and not just a bad day, we all have bad days, we all have, life happens, but if I'm in my own head, like, I got no problem picking up the phone and being like, hey man, you got a minute? Like, I just ain't right today, and this is how I'm feeling and why. And like I said, I went through a horrible divorce, and I had I was never going to meet anybody again, and I was so closed off to emotions and feelings. I wasn't about to let anybody bridge that gap, because for one, I didn't want to hurt anybody else, and for two, I didn't want anybody to hurt me. And coming out of Laurel Ridge, I started giving. I quit drinking all the time. Amen. And I started just giving people that wanted to be in my life a chance to be in my life, and not feeling guilty because I enjoyed them being in my life. Because all the way we work as Rangers operators is we feel like everything that we do has a sense of mission objective. Whether it be helping somebody, somebody telling you a problem, the first thing I want to do is solve it, because that's what I do as a leader. I solve problems. I'm like a problem preventer, problem causer, problem solver. Which one are you today? Come on, man. That's what we do. And I learned that you don't have to solve everybody's problems, and everybody doesn't have to solve yours, but being there for each other could solve a lot of things. Just being able to listen and understand. And I've since, I've been divorced a year. I met a girl, her name's Kirsten. She's probably the sweetest thing on the earth. And I would have never, 8 months ago, I would have never given her the time of day to even talk to me. And she's got a heart of gold, that, one of those people that want to help and do anything for anybody. Like I said, in my other state before Laurel Ridge, I would have never entertained that. All women were, I was like, nope, I've ruined women's lives and they've ruined mine per se, and I'm done with that, But being able to let people in, swallow our pride as Rangers, because we have a lot of pride, and leading with humility instead of pride has gotten me farther in the last year and a half than any sense of pride I've ever had. I have pride in what I've done and the accomplishments I have, but those aren't what developed me as a person anymore. There's something I've done and experiences that I've got to enjoy in life that have developed me to the man I am today. That my purpose is, to help others the best I can, to always be there for my brothers and sisters, and to just be a good person. I spent so long focused on being a Ranger that you lose sight of the person that you are, and you become the Ranger, and that's all you are,
Yeah, that's.
We call it, you need to go into Ranger mode. That's what we say. Just go into Ranger mode and forget about it, man. You'll be fine.
But you
that's
said,
what we do.
Yeah, you said a couple things that are important that I think I just wanted to put a word on it. Is coming out of the back end of this, you've built up resiliency. You've let people into your life, and now you're serving other people, and I think that builds into who you are. And you're first sergeant, correct? Or
yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think when you're in the formation, there's no better place to serve. So those people that you said you looked up to, you now have become one of them, that people look up to you and see you serving that way. I think it's amazing. I didn't want to derail your story, but I had to kind of tie that together, because I see what I hear in those last three things was resiliency being built. And I think anybody can kind of learn from that alone. It's amazing. Absolutely.
As Rangers, and this is a big thing I would want to get across to the SOF community. As Rangers and operators, we always think, if I go to behavioral health, I'm getting flagged. I'm not getting the next team leader job, the squad leader, platoon sergeant, first sergeant, sergeant major, whatever. I'm going to get flagged. My career's over. Take a back seat in the 3 shop somewhere, and we'll figure you out whenever your head's better. But that's not the case, gents. If you need to take a knee because of mental health, from my experience, they're going to support it. If you need to take a knee, mental health is no different than me jumping and breaking my ankle. My ankle takes time to heal, but because you can see me walking in a boot, you know that I'm injured. But there's so many operators and Rangers walking around every day that aren't mindful and mentally stable in their way that it should be. But you can't see that wound, because that's an easy one to mask for a while until it isn't, like Cap, Joe Cap, that is not going to change your path. Getting help is, in my opinion, the strongest thing you can do in the formation that you're in.
Absolutely.
And if any leader tells you otherwise, then they need to get RFS regardless.
So you talked a couple times. You've said the word probably 10 times. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of mentors, having mentors. A lot of yours that you talked about are sergeant majors now. You even talked about civilian mentor, Dave. But before this segment, Mike and I were talking about having a sort of network, a structure, if you will. I called it the defense in depth, where you've got those close friends and families. It could be siblings, it could be your spouse, but then you have teammates, and that circle starts to grow a little bit, right? You've got people within the command. Maybe it goes out. You've got mental health professionals, chaplain, things like that. And again, maybe civilians that you've developed a relationship through coaching, youth sports or whatever you do on the weekends. You're taking people out at the drop zone, and you're tandem qualified, whatever your thing is when you're not wearing the Ranger uniform, right? And so just having those mentors and people that you can draw on when you do need support, and people to talk to on both sides, right? People that have done the job and understand it from your perspective, and people that are outside of that circle that have a different perspective and empathy for things, even though they haven't, been to Afghanistan or what have you, but they can, I think, appreciate your loss even more, than if I'm trying to talk to my friend and I'm having a hard time because it's the anniversary of a good, teammate's death, and he's experienced the same thing, and we just sort of have that, it sucks, bro, and that's it, right? But on the outside, so to speak, they're much more, they're able to, however it is, they're able to just, bring that emotion full circle. And a lot of times they don't push it down like we do.
Right.
At least that's been my experience. So how important has that been for you to just have to
my
build
experience
that?
is the same. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You cut out on me there for a second. Sorry.
Comm issues.
I'm good now. So the mentors, yes, through my experience, we can mentor each other. But I mean, I've reached out to Military One Source, and I thought that was just one of those, suicide prevention things that I had to set through in another hour class and be done with it. But early on, when I lost Jay and Ronnie, and I was dealing with some alcohol issues, I reached out to Military One Source, and they had me on the phone with a counselor in like 20 minutes. So the Army does have some good resources. SOF has amazing resources, but I say don't discard your civilian friends as resources. Just because somebody doesn't have the same experience as you, don't mean you can't learn and grow from them. Everybody in life's dealing with something. Everybody walking down the road that you pass has an issue to deal with, or a problem to deal with, or a heartache that they've been through. All of our experiences don't need to be the same, but in some way, shape, or form, we can relate to people in other ways. And I think as some people, in our professions, we do push all that down, and we nod our head and be like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Thank you. And then we walk on about our life. But since my transition, one of the things I've heard, and it almost gives me chill bumps hearing it. I've heard it multiple times, and Dave has given me a lot of counseling, if you will, on these things. But when people ask me, like, where do you come from? What do you do? Like, I talk to some men church groups, or I'll talk to, these different people or whatever. They'll say, man, it is truly my honor to meet a real American hero, a legend. And for me to hear that I'm like, man, I'm no hero.
Yeah,
like, I can tell you who heroes are. Yeah. Where's that guy? Like, heroes to me, like, they wear Medal of Honors, or, they have silver stars, I got a JCOM with a V, like, there's my heroic, but to be called that for the longest time gave me chill bumps. And Dave's like, hey, listen, like, I know that kind of feels foreign to you, and probably all the men that you work with, it would feel just as foreign to them guys. But the people who haven't been around what is your normal every day, when gunshots go off, you just look and walk in that direction. People in the store look and run. He's like, you're wired different, and they don't understand how those things go. So when they think of people like you, and they don't get to meet people like you much, or if they could walk past you, they probably wouldn't know who you are. To them, you are that person that they've seen in the movies made about, and to be able to embrace that is something you need to learn to do with humility. And don't let it go to your head, but like just be humbled by the fact that true civilians who, appreciate service, are going to look up to men like you in that aspect. And they want to hang on to every word that you have, because of some of the adversities you've overcome and the difficulty job level you had and the countries you've been and fought for them for, and all those things. Like that's what they view a true hero as. So don't use your example of what a hero is and allow them to have their own. And I was like, well, that really makes sense. The whole concept here, the last, few minutes of conversation to me has been like about being able to be open and, not have that pride, like I said earlier, and just be able to accept people's compliments and accept people's, friendships and just being a nice person and being able to, have a conversation with, the janitor as well as the CEO, like being able to just be good to everybody and allow people to have, get to see that side of you, has really given me a purpose, again, and being able to just serve the community. I'm starting a organization called Legacy Ranch, where we're going to bring young underprivileged teenagers in from, like I said, I had not a great childhood, and males, and teach them how to be men again, and let them know it's okay to have feelings, and let them know early on in life, and teach these kids from 9th grade to 12th grade that, hey man, it's okay to cry. Like, like it's okay to have emotions of feelings. You have a feeling of love, you can have a feeling of sadness. You can have a feeling of anger. It's okay to be angry. That's how you react to it, and teach those kids that stuff early on. So, and show them what humility looks like, and a sense of pride, but not prideful. A sense of service and selfless service, like, and teach those children that today in today's society. That's where I've found my passion here lately.
You talked a lot about purpose, and I was thinking back of when you're in the a certain job, and you promote out of that job, and you've got to move on to something else. You got to change units. Maybe you get injured. Maybe you suffer some sort of setback, a failure, and you have to figure out how you're gonna, what you're gonna do next. And it's almost like these little times in your life that you have to reinvent yourself, even if it's only temporarily. Like, hey, what's my value proposition? What do I bring to the table in this new capacity? And a lot of your story captures that. And even now, as you're in transition, you're already finding new purpose, for what's next, for Jason Belford, that's no longer First Sergeant Belford. So, how important is that for folks who are struggling with their purpose, to see, their impact that they're having at whatever level they're at?
Yeah, I think it's huge for people to see your their purpose of, like you said earlier, like taking the uniform off who you are. For me, when I was in the uniform, even when I was out of it, I was still in it, and like I eat, sleep, breathe the Ranger. I literally would drive home saying the Ranger Creed just so I knew if I got called on to say the 6th stanza or the 5th stanza, I would never mess it up. Like, yeah. That's how Ranger I was. But at the end of the day, like, I had to being in Laurel Ridge, coming out of Laurel Ridge with an open mindset, going to all the posts offer this, the intensive outpatient program, IOP. If you don't go to Laurel Ridge, you can have the counselor send you to IOP. And I went back to both, but they were both phenomenal programs. Learned so much about the brain and why it works and why we think that way. And a year prior to that, I would have been like, "That ain't going to that. That's stupid." And just being able to be open and finding that new person that I am at that new passion. You know, I have a passion for people. I have a passion for teaching, and I want to, whatever I do to track that passion down from here on, like I want to continue to do those things and mentor. I want to be the mentor that I've had from the, sergeant majors I mentioned in the civilian world.
Yeah, it sounds like you're well on your way. Your story's been absolutely incredible, and I thank you for sharing that with us. I really want to thank you for your time with us today, and just, I mean, it is a very powerful story, so appreciate that. For the rest of our SOFcast audience, we want to thank them for being here with us and close out the show. So thank you for volunteering to be a Ranger for all those years and riding coach for the nation. And sorry, your story still chokes me up a little bit. And it just, pause a minute. It's when I get emotionally involved with guests that I have a trouble speaking. So I hope the audience feels that too. We need to go into our closing.
So I just want to turn it back over to you one last time. Is there anything that you'd like to leave, our listeners with? Anything that you would want to say to someone who's out in our formations right now, in the teams or supporting the teams that might be struggling with some of the same things that you've talked about on the show so far? What would be your advice?
You matter.
Absolutely.
You matter. People want you around. People care about you. People love you. You're worth it. You can be a hard ass all you want, but at the end of the day, people still love that hard ass. And all the friends and the teammates that you have made, each and every one of them love you. And true power comes from you showing them that you want their help. And don't ever give up on yourself. Believe in yourself, love yourself, grow yourself, and be yourself. Because if you can't love yourself, be yourself, and grow yourself, you can't do that for anybody else either. Rangers lead the way.
So that was a very emotional episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's tough to hear and to watch somebody relive that pain, but I think it's valuable for us to hear it because we continue to experience suicides and attempted suicides across the DoD and even in our veteran population once they take the uniform off. And we like to say SOF for life. So that brotherhood and that camaraderie, it doesn't end just when you take the uniform off.
I know it goes without saying, but to our audience, nobody's alone. There's always somebody out there for you. And if in the military community, if you need to reach out to somebody, who do you reach out to?
Well, certainly it goes without saying in any unit, you have, that support team that's directly around you. You always have military one source. Of course, in the past, we would call 911 if we were, feeling like we're at a point where we're potentially thinking about taking our own life, suicidal ideations. There's recently been 988 released, which is a suicide-specific hotline. So you can always call 911 if that's just what comes to, force of habit.
Yeah.
But if you are someone who's feeling like that, or someone close to you and you feel like they might be considering taking their own life, make sure that you reach out and get them the help that they need so that they don't make a decision that they can't come back from. A permanent solution for a temporary problem.
I think it's important to realize that you and everybody else as an individual is important to somebody, and there's always help out there. Folks, I'm glad you stuck with us this far in the episode. Hopefully you got something out of it like I did. Please check us out on all podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, etc. We're also on YouTube for the visual aspect. And on behalf of General Fenton and CSM Shorter, thank you to First Sergeant Belford for being here today to do the SOFcast with us. And please tune into the next one. Thank you.